Assalamu alaikum. First of all, I would like to apologize for being unable to attend this important conference on atheism. I had some personal circumstances which prevented me from coming to Siirt. I wish you all the best, and I would like to present now my contribution titled, "Does Modern Physics Support Atheism?" The question whether the universe do need a creator or do not is one of the fundamental questions in science and religion debates. Since the time of the old Greeks, Aristotle and his disciples suggested that the universe is eternal and did not have a start in time because time, according to Aristotle, is eternal and has no beginning. In his Physics, Aristotle presented several arguments in support of his suggestion. However, in order to face the fact that motion of celestial object needs a mover, Aristotle suggested the necessity of a prime mover in order to initiate the motion of celestial objects. The subsequent perpetual motion of celestial spheres is thought to be performed by the nature of those spheres. Aristotle argues in his Physics and Metaphysics that, I quote, "there must be an immortal, unchanging being, ultimately responsible for all the wholeness and orderliness in the sensible world." These Aristotelian concepts of prime mover have its roots in cosmological speculations of the earliest Greek pre-Socratic philosophies, became highly influential and widely drawn upon in medieval philosophy and theology. Saint Thomas Aquinas, for example, elaborated on the unmoved mover. The main theme of the Greek philosophy rests on assuming that the efficient causes are subject to nature of things. They assume that the fixed, immutable properties of things are responsible for generating changes and effecting results. This implies that natural causality is behind the sustainment of the universe. The prime mover do not act all the times, but only at the beginning. Aristotle never acknowledged the alleged fact that the unmoved mover is an efficient cause. From that time on, philosophers were inclined to say that the world is eternal and that the efficient causality takes place through nature of things rather than being caused by the intervention of a supernatural force or being. Muslim theologians, represented by the Mutakallimun, negated the eternity of the world and tried to refute the existence of an intrinsic nature of things, the taba'. The Mutakallimun proposed an extensive worldview in contrast to the philosopher's view. Classical physics. By the beginning of the 17th century, a new trend on understanding the physics of nature became evident in Europe. The works of Nicholas Copernicus, Tycho Brahe, Galileo Galilei, Johannes Kepler, and several other several other scientists affirmed the natural causality as a basis for the mechanism the way nature works. Nevertheless, the eternity of the world remained to be a purely philosophical question, and the subsequent works of Isaac Newton, Edmund Halley, Hertz, Faraday, and James Clerk Maxwell, and several other scientists, established a profound mathematical formulation for the laws of nature. These were realized through understanding gravity, electricity, and magnetism, and the laws of heat and thermodynamics. This new achievement, although not negating the existence of a creator, as we know, is no more than prime mover. Newton himself was not convinced with this point of view. By the beginning of the 19th century, large number of scientists were convinced that the notion of the world is ruled or ruling itself, independent of any supernatural force or being, became established. The general attitude about this might be found in the reply of Pierre Laplace to Napoleon when he asked him about the place of God in his book Celestial Mechanics. As we know, Napoleon asked Pierre Laplace about God and the role of God in running the heavens. Then Laplace answered, "Dear sir, this is a hypothesis that I don't find necessary for explaining the celestial motion." Further development of classical physics and the development of Darwin's theory of biological evolution consolidated atheism and the atheistic views. Many social and political movements all over the world were much influenced by these atheistic views. Modern physics. Modern physics opened a new era in the history of human knowledge. New concepts emerged and a new understanding of the whole universe became possible from the level of minute elementary constituents of matter to the grand galactic clusters. Quantum theory exposed that the constituents of the world are entangled, that our classical concept of reality may not apply to the microscopic world, and that the classical deterministic causality is no more than illusion. Quantum mechanics has opened a legitimate approach to understanding miracles. The theory of relativity, on the other hand, provided us with a new version of understanding space and time, new ideas, new concepts, and enable us to describe the force of gravity as a curvature of space-time. This theory helped us discover new phenomena in the universe. The dawn of modern physics actually shined when Max Planck proposed that heat energy is emitted and absorbed in the form of energy lumps or quanta, what they call quanta, energy quanta. Later utilization of this notion enabled explaining the atomic spectra, for example, which was a very important issue at that time, and Niels Bohr was able to develop a complete theory of the atom, mainly the hydrogen atom, actually. He could explain several phenomena using the quantization rules, quantization of energy and quantization of angular momentum. But later, it was discovered that waves and particles have dual properties. Particles behave like waves. For example, electrons diffract and they form pattern, interference pattern, which is a property of the waves. But electrons are particles. Also, it was found that waves behave like particles. For example, light has a momentum and could eject electrons from the matter, from the surface of metals, and this is only a property that can be associated with particles. So waves behave like particles, and particles behave like waves. This was not easy to understand in the beginning. Later on, Erwin Schrödinger and Werner Heisenberg were able to set up a theory or a mathematical formulation, let us say, to explain quantum effects, to explain even the discoveries about quantization of energy and quantization of angular momentum. This formulation provided full-fledged mathematical structure to explain quantum effects on the atomic and molecular level. This formulation proved to be correct through large number of experiments. By the mid-20th century, quantum theory was very well established. Atheism and Theism. Basically, theism is the belief that the universe is not a standalone block system. Theism suggests that there should be a creator for this universe who goes on to sustain the events taking place in it and has done so for certain purpose. That is theism. Such a creator has to be some sort of supernatural force acting beyond our realization of materialistic world. Now let's look at atheism and see what are the loopholes, the big loopholes with atheism. Atheism, on the other hand, is based on the assumption that the universe is ruled by some set of laws called the laws of nature, including the natural properties inherent in the objects. Direct everyday observation supports such a belief. Of course, apparently supports such a belief. Cotton, for example, is set on fire once sufficient amount of energy is provided to its parts. And this is a phenomena that can be repeated billions of times. This argument applies actually to many other phenomena. At this point, atheism gets bound to the concept of deterministic causality. Nowhere atheism can find an escape from the challenge of determinism and deterministic causality, because upon suggesting indeterministic world, we are required to explain the determinants of the possible probabilities associated with those events. And here is the fix: quantum mechanics. So, upon the rise of quantum mechanics and the discovery of the events on the that the events on the microscopic level in the universe are indeterministic, atheism faced a big challenge. The universe appeared to be contingent, and the conditions for the occurrence of an event are found to be contingent rather than necessary. Deterministic causality on the fundamental level is found to be no more than an illusion. That is the new factor, that is the new concept provided by quantum theory. Using mathematical equations, we can calculate the probabilities for the occurrence of an event out of several, but nobody knows who is choosing between the different probabilities. There is no law for choosing between the probabilities. There is a law to calculate the probabilities, but not to choose between them. Physicists realize that the choice between probabilities cannot be part of the set of laws of nature, since it would fall again in the pit of indeterminism. Such a law, if existed, it will be again indeterministic and would need an agency to rule over such a law again. Consequently, and according to this argument, the laws of nature, what we call laws of nature, which are, by the way, the phenomena. Law of nature is the phenomena itself. Laws of physics is something else. Laws of physics is our expression, our explanation, our formula, mathematical formulation of the law of nature. So, laws of physics cannot, obviously, determine who is playing with the probabilities, and laws of nature themselves need operator to move to operate them and to choose the event on which they operate. This is the new idea in defeating determinism and the self-act of laws of nature. Let us see what cosmology says. The other point which presented a challenge for atheism was the discovery that the universe has a beginning. After painstaking observations, Edwin Hubble and his colleagues discovered during the second decade of the last century that galaxies are rushing away from us. The universe is expanding. As such, if we go back in time, the universe must have started from a certain point in the past, in the far past. Calculations show that the universe is about 15 billion years old. Further investigation about the natural abundance of the chemical elements enabled Giorgiamo and his collaborators in the late 40s of the last century to set a scenario for the development of the universe from a very early moment, 10 to the power minus 4 second. That is 1 part in 10,000 part of a second. Gamow started from that point and established a scenario for developing such a universe. They found that the natural abundance of light elements, that is the hydrogen, the helium, the lithium, and their isotopes, can be explained if the universe popped out as a very small bubble containing all sorts of elementary particles and their antiparticles at very high temperature. As the universe went expanding, the temperature fell down and the energetic protons and neutrons started forming the first nuclei of the light elements. Upon further expansion of the universe, the temperature fell again and again, and the electrons were able to combine with the nuclei, forming the first atoms. At that very moment, when the first atoms were formed, every atom, every new atom, emitted a photon, an energy quanta, forming what we call now the cosmic microwave background radiation. This radiation, which was predicted by Gamow and his collaborators in the late 40s of the last century, were discovered later in the 60s by Penzias and Wilson, and was verified to be the imprints of the formation of the first atoms in the universe, thus verifying Gamow's theory. In fact, Gamow predicted that the equivalent temperature of the microwave background radiation is about 5 degrees Kelvin, and then purified calculation found it is 3 degrees Kelvin, 3 degrees below absolute zero, that is 270 degrees below 0 Celsius. And this is the temperature, you can say, of the average temperature of the universe. And observations proved that this is true. This is correct. So this was a big blow for the eternity of the universe, which was supported by the atheistic philosophy. In an attempt to negate the beginning of the universe, Stephen Hawking and William Hartle mathematically showed that the universe could have existed in an infinite imaginary time before the Big Bang. The Big Bang is the theory of Gamow, as we talked about it. Their proof is actually mathematically correct, but never disprove the fact that the universe had a start in real time. Their suggestion that the universe existed in imaginary time has only mathematical meaning, since imaginary quantities cannot be measured. Therefore, they are non-physical, and the universe remains to be to have a start in time. We cannot deny that the universe had a start in real time. According to some models of the universe, there could be a cyclic phases for the universe by which the universe expands and then contracts and then expands again and contracts again. Some people thought that this may support the notion of eternity, that the universe has no start again. But this is not correct, because in every phase, a new phase, the universe is getting recreated again and again. So we cannot say that the universe, the cyclic universe, is an eternal universe. It's a new universe, actually. But let us look at other arguments from Stephen Hawking and Lawrence Krauss. The cosmological argument of the Mutakallimun ascribe the creation of the universe and all its content to a supernatural agency. Among these is the Kalam cosmological argument, which I mentioned, which was recently reformulated by William Craig. On the contrary, it is argued that the laws of physics provide enough reason for the existence of the universe without the need to refer to any supernatural cause. Stephen Hawking and more recently Lawrence Krauss have spread such claim in their popular books written for laymen. The main argument is based on the assumption that vacuum, or quantum vacuum rather, can create the universe from nothing without the need of any supernatural force. My argument against the claim of Stephen Hawking and Lawrence Krauss is this: vacuum fluctuations cannot turn into real particles without the existence of a strong gravitational field. If vacuum, that is to say the nothing, need no creator because it's nothing, gravity would need definitely a creator. Where it comes from? Stephen Hawking, Lawrence Krauss didn't answer this question. On the other hand, and through a somewhat philosophical argument, given the fact that vacuum fluctuations are a contingency, they are therefore certainly subject to the initiation and sustainments that keep such virtual states popping up and down within the time duration below the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, uncertainty limit rather. Who then would do that, and what kind of law would work to sustain the state of a quantum vacuum? What kind of a law governs the initial condition of the universe before it comes into being? Since certainly neither Hawking nor Krauss could answer such questions. The law and the universe. Some physicists are confused about the concept of laws of nature and laws of physics. In my book, God, Nature and the Cause, I have shown that this confusion may lead to fundamental misunderstanding and the role of both types of laws in sustaining the world. It's remarkable that some physicists think that if God exists, then the universe should be run miraculously. This is wrong. The universe need not to be miraculous if God exists. Confronted with the fact that points toward a transcendental existence, in a debate with John Polkinghorne, Steven Weinberg, the great physicist, declared, "My argument can be falsified if a fiery sword would come from nowhere and hit me for my impiety." Steven Weinberg is an atheist. He doesn't believe in God. So he is challenging Polkinghorne on this question and asks for a supernatural, miraculous event to happen. In a public lecture, Lawrence Krauss agreed with the argument that God exists, but he says, well, if so, I am ready to believe in God. If I wake up one night and look at the sky and see that the stars are arranged to read the sentence, "I am here." This is a laughable argument indeed, because the universe is not run miraculously. In fact, theism does not imply that the world should be run miraculously. God does not rule the universe with miracles, otherwise it will become chaos. God states in the Quran that He has created this world with truth, بالحق. And to establish the truth, we should have definite measures and references. Such a measure and a reference can only be brought through a law. The Quran has stressed this fact in several verses. In fact, the existence of order and law in the universe is the reason why we believe in God. It points to the order of God. Conclusion. The two main pillars of modern physics, quantum theory and relativity theory, have opened the door wide open to seek a meaning for our existence. Science now can contribute to elevate our understanding of our existence. Reductionism is no more than a valued prospect in the proper worldview. Quantum theory tells us that objects in the universe are entangled, suggesting a holistic concept about our relation with the universe. There are many other aspects in this theory which suggest that materialistic view is very limited and impotent, in fact, when one foresees a meaning for our existence. Quantum theory asserts that reality is not bound to what we see. Reality goes much further to probe the unseen and pass over to connect the past with the future. The theory of relativity, on the other hand, provides us with a new prospect to realize the world of matter, energy, and time. This theory tells us about the world of frozen time near black holes, where eternity would have a physical meaning, and tell us that there are space-like universes where causality ceases and where no time exists. Relativity tells us about wormholes which can take us into other worlds. These windows opened the discoveries of modern physics, opened by the discoveries of modern physics, can be utilized to understand our existence and to present a more advanced view about the whole universe, and perhaps to better understand our role and purpose and destiny, why we are existing, what is the purpose, what should be our destiny. Science can help us, modern science, modern physics can help us understand that. If we can elevate our understanding of theism along these lines, atheism will be part of the history of the primitive human intellect.